The Weight of Pebbles. It was just a pebble, Jude would tell himself long after the dust had settled. Just a little pebble tossed into a still lake. But life doesn't forget so easily, and ripples, once set in motion, don't ask permission before they spread. In still waters. Elmswood was the kind of town where everything seemed to whisper. The wind tiptoed through the trees, the river murmured against the rocks, and the townsfolk spoke with the hush of people who had known each other's secrets too long. It was a quiet place, maybe too quiet for someone like Caleb Ross, a young man with a heart too full for the town that raised him. Caleb was 24 and carried his soul on the outside. His laugh was genuine, the kind that made strangers smile involuntarily, and his eyes, storm gray and always searching, held the kind of hope most people had long buried. He believed in big things, poetry, loyalty, and love that didn't bend under pressure. And then Aurora Lane happened to him. She was an ache wrapped in silk, stunning in a way that felt unreal, like looking directly into the sun and seeing the outline of something sacred. Her beauty wasn't just skin deep, it shimmered in the space between her silences and the haunted glint in her amber eyes. She was a contradiction, graceful but guarded, radiant yet unreachable. When Caleb first met her at a local art gallery, she stood alone, mesmerized by a canvas of a burning field. "That's not fire," she murmured to no one in particular. "That's grief pretending to be light." Caleb didn't know it then, but that was the moment the first pebble dropped. Their love bloomed fast, like spring daffodils under a sun that finally remembered to rise. Aurora felt safe with Caleb, maybe too safe. He loved her with the softness of a lullaby and the conviction of a hymn. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to be seen, not just her smile, but her scars too. It wasn't long before Caleb brought her into his inner circle, introducing her to the only person he'd ever called brother, Jude Callahan. Jude was the opposite of Caleb in almost every way. Where Caleb was soft-spoken, Jude was magnetic, sharp cheekbones, sharper tongue, and a devil-may-care charm that left a trail of broken hearts behind him like cigarette ash. He had a past he never spoke about, eyes that flicked with mischief, and a grin that made people lean in before they knew they were falling. Aurora didn't fall, but she wavered. At first, the three of them were inseparable. Coffee shops, lakeside walks, late night talks about everything and nothing. But chemistry doesn't ask permission, and tension, once birthed, doesn't sit quietly. Jude noticed the way Aurora's eyes lingered a second too long. Aurora noticed the way Jude could read her in ways that Caleb couldn't. And Caleb, bless his trusting soul, saw only friendship, his love for both of them blinding him to the undercurrent building beneath the surface. The Whisper War. Jealousy is a subtle poison. It doesn't kill with a strike, it seeps silently. Jude began his campaign gently, wearing the mask of concern. "She's been distant lately, hasn't she?" he'd say to Caleb after Aurora left the room. "You ever wonder if you're enough for her?" At first, Caleb brushed it off, but seeds once planted have a way of growing, even in the most guarded hearts. Aurora, sensing the shift, pulled back, not out of guilt but confusion. Caleb no longer looked at her like a lighthouse, but like a question. Their talks grew tense, the silences stretched. Then came the storm, a confrontation laced with hurt and insecurity. "Do you love him?" Caleb had asked, voice cracking like old timber. Aurora hadn't answered, not because the answer was yes, but because she no longer knew what love was supposed to feel like. They broke up beneath a weeping sky. Jude was the first to comfort her. He was there with wine and apologies, with his hand grazing hers, with the kind of attention she hadn't felt in weeks. Grief makes fools of us all. That night, they blurred the lines. The ripple weeks turned into months. Regret settled into Aurora's bones like winter frost. She didn't love Jude. She never had. What they had was born from chaos, not care. And when she missed a period, she didn't panic. She simply stared at the ceiling and waited for the next ripple. 2 lines, a child. She called Jude. Voicemail. She called Caleb. And he came. She didn't know what she expected, but it wasn't this. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He just stood there, a man who had given everything, now looking at the last piece being taken from him. "You were the only thing I never doubted," he said. And then he left. Echoes in the water. Caleb moved west, took a job rebuilding houses for disaster relief, each house a silent metaphor for what he couldn't fix in his own life. They say he stopped writing poems because the words started to taste bitter. They say he fell in love with the sea because it never asked him to stay. Aurora stayed in Elmswood. She raised her daughter alone, naming her Lumen, a flicker of hope in a story she still couldn't bring herself to explain. Some days she saw Caleb in her daughter's eyes and wondered what might have been if she'd just held on tighter. Other days she thanked the stars for the lesson, even if it had come wrapped in fire. As for Jude, he vanished. Some say he left the country, others say he never stopped running. But no one missed him, not really, because even the wind, once it wreaks havoc, has the decency to leave. The Weight of Pebbles. Ripples don't end at the shore. They echo, even when the stone that caused them has long disappeared beneath the surface. What Jude never understood was this: every action is a pebble. Every word, every betrayal, every stolen glance, it all ripples outward, touching lives we never meant to disturb. And once those ripples start, they carry consequences that even love can't undo. So maybe it wasn't just a pebble, maybe it was everything.